Hello everybody, welcome along here to Mantel Farm on YouTube for a slightly different video. I'm going to change the format up a little bit this week. It's sort of occurring to me that there might be a better way of getting a little bit more information across to you guys during our videos. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to come in, interject, elaborate and explain some of the stuff that we're seeing in the hive or what we saw in the hive just the other day.
Forgot. Oh dear, dear, dear. As a pretend proper beekeeper, I must smoke the entrance first. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 frames of seams of bees, and there's bees on both sides of that and right down to the bottom, so they're probably quite sort of busy in here.
These have been looking good for a few weeks now, haven't they, since we booked it?
Fresh pollen and nectar, lots and lots of bees. They're actually drawing down at the bottom there. These, I can see eggs in that drone brood at the bottom of there.
So we're actually at the edge of the brood,
technically. Well, sort of, yeah.
Little patch of sealed brood.
There's a little patch of sealed brood. There's still some stores in there. I think as we're going to put a super on, I think we'll scratch the cappings off that.
Encourage them to move it up.
Which will mean that they will then eat it and then find that they've got to do something with it, which they might actually put it into the super.
Bees will immediately go and tend to the damaged comb, lap up all of that, the honey that's there, clean it up. They might even recap it again, but they will have taken some of it away because it is cappable. It's ripe honey, it's the right concentration of water and sugars, etc. But what they will do is they will ingest it, obviously, and if there's too much of it, then they'll regurgitate it and put it somewhere else. And the intent is that they go and stick it in the supers.
Didn't really work very well.
Still a few on there, aren't there?
Yeah, I'm not very good at doing it in the box because I worry too much about squashing bees. Anyway, here we go.
Well, they're not happy now, Roger.
I didn't think they'd object that much to that. Oh well, there you go.
They didn't like that, did they?
No, they didn't, did they? You can tell by the tone of the hum. And
So
although we've upset them a bit, they haven't actually tried to sting me. I don't know about whether they've attacked you or not. And we've brood on.
Oh wow.
That one's got
Considerable.
a lot of brood on. But as you can see, they're filling all the available spaces with nectar and drone brood and whatnot, so I think we're probably just about in time getting a super on this.
Now, that's one of the other things to be aware of. If the hatched cells are being backfilled, as it were, with nectar, then and a lot of it, then the queen can't actually lay in those cells. So if the nectar is being stored in amongst your brood, then that can indicate that they might, it's just one of the indicators. Again, it's not an absolute fact, but it's one of the indicators that they might be needing to have a super on top.
Right in the middle. Dead centre, more or less. There's a queen cup there.
Oh yes.
Nothing in it, it's not polished up in the middle.
So that's just a play cut type.
We're just, it's that time of year when you have to be aware of this stuff. We really don't want to swarm. I don't know about Josh, but I'm fairly determined that Kerry's going to get some honey off these this year. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 good frames of brood. I mean, I would think that if we put a super on this, there's not going to be a lot of doubt that they'll go up into it and do something, because there's going to be so many bees in here in the next week.
There's going to be
that they're going to be needing somewhere to stand, never mind doing stuff. That will reduce the congestion, which will hopefully kind of reduce their impulse to swarm. I don't think they'd have swarmed yet anyway, because they've only just really started producing drones.
So I asked Roger at this point whether he could give some indication as to what he thought would, I don't know, be the indicators for putting a super on. What would be the red flag for him?
What to you would tell you a hive needs a super on?
Well, if it's got, say, 10 frames in the brood nest,
Yeah.
I would reckon if over half of them had brood in, that it's about time that you were putting a super on. I mean, we could probably have put one on last week, but as we keep saying, the weather was so manky that we didn't dare open anything up, really.
So if they swarm, if the queen swarms from this, she's mated, isn't she?
Yeah.
The queen that's left behind, would she mate with any of the drones from the parent hive?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is that there's no way of knowing for certain because the drones can go to any hive.
Yeah.
And then, so, you know, a lot of the drones from here will decamp to other hives because they will fly apparently up to 10 kilometres a day.
Gosh.
So they could, at the end of the week, they could be most of the way to London, couldn't they?
Well, they could, yeah.
If they were sort of determined.
So do other hives let them in? They're not too worried?
And apparently drones have, like the golden ticket, they're welcome in any hive.
Wow.
I didn't know that. So, yeah, there you go. We're learning together. I don't know whether you guys knew that, but I had absolutely no idea. Not quite sure where that leaves hygiene and varroa.
Except I think sometimes they might be discouraged in a hive that's just set up with a new queen.
Right.
Because I've noticed in my hives at home, where you have a hive with queen cells or a virgin, there will be a lot of drones in there. And as soon as that virgin gets mated, then the drones disappear.
So yeah.
And I mean, last season I had one lot that mated really late, and I was quite concerned they weren't going to make it. They were the only hives out of my 20 odd that had any drones in at all.
Wow.
All the rest had got rid of them.
Huh.
But they know that they seem to know. I mean, you know, they know. Somehow, they realise that they need drones if they haven't got a laying queen. And so they don't eject them. That's the wrong sort of excluder, isn't it?
Have we got a national one?
I've got a national one there. what a clot. Yep.
Yeah, that looks great.
This is mostly drawn comb. I think some of it's sort of partially drawn comb, but they shouldn't have a huge problem with
Dealing with it.
getting up amongst this. And on this one we've still got a lot of fondant and a lot of bees eating it.
They're drying it out as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they've still got fondant on because there's no supers on, so it's of no consequence. They're in a big box with 14 by 12 frames, and they've got, as you'll see, going forward, they've got plenty of space. So we're not worrying about having the fondant on. I think one of the things Roger's going to do next week or the week after is we're going to try and dilute that down a little bit. So we're going to just put some water into it to make it more accessible for the bees. Because one of the things that happens with fondants is the bees lap the moisture out of the fondant, because that dissolves the crystals. Then they have to use saliva to take away the sugar out of it. And that's why it's quite a good winter food, because it doesn't introduce an awful lot of moisture into the hive. But at this time of year, they actually need it diluted down quite a bit so that they can actually take it down and feed it to the brood as well as the working bees. So adding a little bit of liquid to it or stirring it in and making it into a syrup, one-to-one syrup at this time, is probably not a bad idea, to be quite honest.
I think there was only 1 and a bit or 2 frames of brood in there last time, but that was 2 weeks ago. So we'd expect to see an increase, wouldn't we?
Well, we'd hope to see an increase.
Yeah,
It's a bit. a bit optimistic to say we expect anything at this time of year, really. That is definitely fresh pollen, so I would expect to find...
And nectar as well, isn't it? Fresh nectar.
I would expect to be finding brood on the next frame in. These two hives are in the same apiary, and there's just this much difference between. We've gone through, what, 4 or 5 frames, and we're not at the brood yet in this one.
No.
That one, it was 7 brood out of 10, and this one, it's so far no brood out of 5. I've got sealed brood on this side. It's a bit pepper potty. It's a bit sort of, I don't know whether that's just because they're just getting going, or whether that's Varroa that we need to worry about.
Now Roger's a little bit concerned here about the brood pattern, and I'm not going to disagree with him. It is a bit pepper potty, as he puts it. However, we weren't seeing any other symptoms of Varroa or any other diseases. So, and on closer inspection, we could actually see inside the cells, although they're a bit dark, and the light at this point was sort of dropping down as the very large oak trees that cast shadows over our apiary in the afternoon or late afternoon were making it a bit more difficult to see inside those cells. But we did see eggs, and there were larvae. So I think all it is that they're just laying or replacing the brood, and the queen's just getting into a laying cycle, and I think that's all we're seeing. If you're seeing other symptoms such as K-wing, deformed wing, maybe bees with actual Varroa mites on them, then it probably would be a good idea to pop a treatment onto this hive.
That is quite sort of patchy and pepper potty, but as I say, it might just be that it's because they're just starting.
Bit of a better
And there we have another big
slab of brood.
extensive frame of brood. I mean, these are basically, they're just about a week behind those. Brood is more solid on these ones. Look, there's...
Oh, that's a better pattern, isn't it? There we go. You can see the larvae in the cells there. Yeah. Clean it up. Oh, there's the queen.
There's the queen. Oh, there's the queen. Look, hello, darling. How are you?
Well done. That's the final frame. What's she doing all the way out there?
She's looking well.
Yeah. She's a lovely girl. She's all the way out there. She's followed. She's done what the other one did. Moved all the way out. One step ahead.
That was the first frame, which is, although it looks, that is like grey mould. That's not really a problem as far as the bees are concerned. They can clear that up in no time. I mean, if we let them use that, they'd be perfectly happy to clean that up and use it, but I think we'll get that one out before they actually get to fill it with brood. 3 frames with brood on, was it?
Yeah, 3 frames of brood.
I mean, oddly, they're really deep frames of brood. They're not, you know, I would expect them to be small patches on the 2 adjacent frames when they've gone that deep in the middle, but I don't know. Bees are odd.
They are odd, yeah.
They tend to do their own thing despite all our best efforts. We'll just leave them to get on with it until they're... I mean, there wouldn't be any point putting a super on this, because it would just mean that they were trying to keep
bigger area,
a big space warm, which isn't going to do them any good at all this time of the year. So that's going to be at least a week before it needs a super on it, if they really sort of get up and go for the next week.
See where they are next time we look at them.
We'll see how they are next time. I mean, it's possible that next time we look in there, there'll be 6 frames of brood, in which case it's then, perhaps we may need a super on this one. There you go, girls.
Have a bit of that. This isn't working. You're just going to talk over me. Weather on our side, we had a fantastic inspection, and we got to look through both of our main colonies. Our WBC is looking fantastic, 2 weeks on since we last looked. So we popped a super on the top, given a bit of extra space, drawn comb, so they haven't got to put a lot of effort into that, and that should let them draw up some of that brood stores up into the super to afford the queen more space to lay her eggs. Plenty of fresh nectar and pollen coming in, so that suggests to us that there's probably a bit of a flow going on at the moment. So it probably is a good time to pop your supers on. If you've got a colony that's starting to look pretty full, pop a super on it, they'll get to it pretty quickly. So some of you might be thinking about popping treatments on for Varroa ahead of putting supers on. Now my recommendation at the moment would be, and I was talking to Roger about this whilst we were doing our inspection today, is if you do have any cause for alarm, then it's a good idea to possibly put something like formic acid on, which you can use in conjunction with supers, like Mitaway quick strips. If you're using oxalic acid or anything like that, then you can't have that on in conjunction with your supers. bbka you can, but it may taint the honey as it's got the thymol in it, so it might taint the smell and the flavour of your honey. And it also takes a little bit longer to do the treatment. So as we're getting to the point where we kind of need to put supers on now, and it is also temperature dependent, and that's been all over the place as of late, then I would probably opt for something like formic acid as a 7-day treatment. Should we be worried about swarming at the moment? I think we're getting close to swarming, but as we saw with the intent was in the WBC, but again we know from experience of other beekeepers that congestion is a precursor. So by putting that super on, I think we've probably bled some of the bees hopefully up into the super, and they can spread themselves a little bit more thinly. So we had a fantastic inspection. We managed to have a look at everything that we needed to. Weather's been fantastic for us today. All the best from here at Mantel Farm, and until next time, take care.